Welcome from Sananda. Welcome, everybody. Lovely big questions. As you listen, whether now as these words are being recorded or later or reading the transcript, give yourself room to expand into the inner spaces of your being, to open up your understanding beyond that which is familiar or can easily be turned into words. For you will readily appreciate that such a large question presents challenges when we seek to use words, concepts to respond. So behind or within the words and concepts I'm using is also a kind of broadcast, a transmission of light, of love, of welcome, of appreciation too. Begin by understanding that such questions as these bring answers that are in many ways created by you, rather than being absolute external verities. One aspect of this is that if we consider God, then inevitably, at least for a while, you'll find that God is created in your own image to some degree. Probably not in a literal or overly literal sense. But if you are to understand God, then you seek within yourself. That you experience, for example, as being best in yourself, or beyond the realms of your normal sense of yourself, but that you imagine or reach out for. And you give this name, this concept. So as we begin to respond, let's explore who or what God is, how that understanding might be considered or held by you. If you are holding the concept, hold it as lightly as you can. Understand that your understanding grows, it changes. If you find within yourself a desire to be proprietary towards God, that to feel that in some way you must defend God against those who deny the existence of God, or if indeed as you listen you're coming from a place where you say, there is no God, I have none of this kind of belief, I even object to others having this belief. If you find within yourself those kind of rigidities, or remnants of those rigidities, do your best to let go of it. Allow them to dissolve, not necessarily all at once, but through time. Whether you believe or disbelieve in the existence of God, by all means, allow yourself to enjoy discussing this topic with those who have other views than your own. Let it be fun, let it expand your understanding, let it help you to grow. Let it be stimulating. But if it becomes rigid, if it becomes something that has to be defended, that you feel an obligation to attack the one who does not believe as you believe, then appreciate that the time for that kind of understanding, that kind of belief system is passing. Really, it's passed already. It lingers on, of course, but you need have no part in it. Whether you believe or disbelieve in the existence of God, do not let that be a bone of contention. A bone of contention with which you beat the other over the head. It's unhelpful. Let us consider, given the direction the question comes from, someone who does not believe in God at all, a strong atheist. And yet this individual may marvel at the wonder of the world, how it all comes to being, the structure behind the forms that make up the world, the cells that make up your physical body, and then to go down to the level of subatomic particles and their dance, the mysterious activity at the quantum level. This disbeliever may be filled with wonder. And you, the believer, can share that wonder. For you too, the world has a miraculous quality. The non-believer may say, no, it's not a miracle, it's just that we don't understand it all yet. And you can believe that too, you can agree. You may choose to call it a miracle, but you can agree that you too do not understand it all yet. So as you contemplate the enormousness of the question here, do your best to allow extra space beyond your own concepts of what might be the case. Allow the possibility that you might have got it completely wrong. So understand also that when I'm responding today, I'm not giving you dogma. I'm making suggestions. That's why I preface my remarks by encouraging you to open up into your own understanding and then beyond what is within the immediate grasp of your understanding. To play with the largeness of possibility, the largeness of potential, the enormousness of all that is. And then be relaxed about whether you choose to call that God, or the mystery of the universe, or whatever. Understand this from another point of view. Here you are all on human earth, 8 billion or so of you occupying the planet at the moment, and every one of you has a unique viewpoint. It cannot be otherwise. Each of you is literally in a different place, however close you might be physically. You are seeing a slightly different world or a very different world. The unique viewpoint that you have is precious. And it's in part precious because when you come together, all of those unique viewpoints create a wonderful range of perception, the possibility of deepening understanding. Look at the area, for example, of scientific endeavor, where at its best many individuals working away within their laboratories or whatever their field might be come together to share what they discover, and out of that sharing create a larger picture of what the world is, or a deeper picture, or a broader understanding. So now let's move into the question itself. Is the light of God within all beings? Simple answer, yes. Now to expand upon that. In this universe, as you experience it and as you understand it, light can be considered to be the primary expression of the source of all. Consciousness, the consciousness behind all that is, expresses light. as that primary presence permeating the universe. But then light itself also generates consciousness. As you come to know the light of your own being more, you become more conscious. As you become more conscious, you perceive more and more of the light behind all forms. And so you find yourself existing in a reality in which much of the light behind all form is not immediately evident for most of you most of the time. In that sense, we can say that the world of form contains locked-in light, and that part of what you are investigating as human beings is how that light can be activated or released or expanded, so that you shift your own consciousness, your understanding and experience of the world. That's a beautiful endeavor. And because of that endeavor, the question is shaped, we might say. Is the light of God within all beings? And for you, in the context in which you live, the answer therefore is yes. That there is nothing in the range of your perceptions that does not have the light of Source within it. But there is the possibility of totally other universes, other dimensions of being that are not within the range of your perceptions, where the terms that I'm using and the response that I'm giving might no longer really be accurate or even relevant. So again, I encourage you to have that sense of there being always something beyond what you currently understand or even can reach into. From what I've already said, you will also understand that the degree to which light within all beings or all matter or all that exists within this universe, within this context that we're exploring today, there can be degrees of hiddenness, of evidence. Sometimes the light shines forth. You look at the sun in the sky, and although you appreciate and understand, or may appreciate and understand, that there is a spiritual light that is not visible to your physical eyes and that extends far beyond the light of the star, or at least the body of the star in its illuminated state, yet at the same time you readily apprehend that the sun is a source of light, and that part of its role you might consider in your life is to remind you of the light within all matter. But then you can choose something that you consider to be quite dense, like a dense metal. Let's select lead. And this you might consider, if it does contain light, the light is well hidden. Your inner vision is not penetrating it very readily. It is not that lead is in some sense inferior to the sun, it is just different. And the light is there as well. It is simply that the orbit of the atoms, the dance of the subatomic particles, is arranged so that there is, in a certain sense, a containing of light rather than a releasing of light. You are learning to release light within yourselves. And so you look out and you wonder, is the light that I feel or believe is within myself, is that equally present in everyone, in all forms of life? How might it be? And there can be a fear that comes in. Is it possible that I might, by mischance or misguidance, making wrong choices in some sense, turn from the light turn my back on it, turn my back on it outside and inside, descend in some downward spiral into ever darker spaces until ultimately the light is extinguished. If that is there, however distant and slight a fear it might be, let it dissolve. Part of the meaning behind the question, part of the value of it, is it draws your attention to what we would say for you, for your universe, for your state of being, is a fundamental truth. The light within your being cannot be lost. It can, as figuratively speaking, the light within lead is lost, it can be well hidden. Part of the reason I began by encouraging a kind of fluidity of response to those who share different beliefs than yours was to remind you that the formulation over time of increasingly rigid beliefs is one of the ways in which the light can be blocked out until ultimately a being can become so rigidly encasing his or her or its light that the light for that being is lost. Lost from sight, not lost from existence. And these are two very different things. And so you can imagine a situation in which the light of the source of all draws that poor, lost, encased presence back into the fullness of light, to illuminate it again, to, so to speak, burn away the outer casing that has obscured the light. And in small ways, of course, you can find yourself living this human life, experiencing that over and over again. Not that you've lost sight of your light in any absolute sense, but in the moment, you can begin to find yourself spiraling down into a pattern of negative thought, of disliking yourself, feeling the world is hostile to you, whatever your particular brand of self-accusation might be. In those moments, it might be that indeed you lose sight of the light that you are. And so again, this question is so useful. It offers a larger context for these small moments in life. It helps you to understand that those moments when you slip into a kind of negativity, self-doubt, self-accusation, hostility to the world, however it presents for you, is not about some ultimate defeat or failure, but actually a process that you're engaged in, that you're on a quest as a human being to understand and to experience to some degree the full range of feeling that is possible. I'll come back to that when I talk about emotions and feelings. But now let's turn to the question of soul. Does every being have a soul? Again, the simple answer this time is no. Soul is just one way of investigating all that is. For example, imagine being a being who identifies so completely with your experience that you are that experience. You are, as it were, dissolved into the experience. You are beingness. You don't really need a soul to do that. The soul intrinsically suggests a kind of separation, not a breach, not a break, but a stretching out, as it were, a supply line, something like that. So when we speak of soul, generally we'll be using this as a kind of model. There is the source of all. Whether you consider that source of all to be God, or the wonder of all that is, or the source of your particular being, however it is. From that source is a manifesting of presence that moves towards an individuation. This you might consider to be the oversoul or the monad. From that, a movement towards a more direct individual experience. And then your soul, balanced as it were, between this continuous appreciation of the source and the beauty of expression in individuality, is discovering more of what it is to be, what is possible, what can be created, what can be understood. From this state of balance between complete oneness with the source of all and the unique expression that is, for example, you. Though the soul experiences time in a different way from you, the soul is evolving. It's on an adventure of exploration, and you're part of that adventure. And so your soul then projects an aspect of itself, in your terms, in your reality, into being you, being human, living this life. But it is just one way of doing it. If you choose to connect with angelic beings, for example, then you're likely to find that though there might be something that has some kind of comparability to soul, it's really very different. The integration of the being who is angelic is so complete that the notion of something separate, or to some extent, as I've suggested, separated from, not divided from, but at a distance, it's not really making much sense. A different kind of language would be needed if there is any kind of otherness there within the angelic being. It's of a very different nature. It's not soul, it's something else. And maybe it's not even there at all. Conversely, if you choose to look at some of those beings you share the planet with, the animals, for example, soul is a relevant term. There's meaning there, but the relationship of the animal to the soul may be rather different. It is the tendency for the human to begin with the human self. I am John, I am Mary. Then I am human. Then I'm spirit. Something like that might be the path of understanding. For the animal, let's take a bird for example, it might be more, I am bird. Then I am crow. Then I'm this crow. Then I'm here now. It's a different way of doing things, something that you can learn from, but it's not quite the same as you have in your relationship with your soul. Both are entirely valid, just different ways of doing things. So soul is present for the animals, and it varies from species to species. But the soul, we might say, in a very broad brush kind of a way, is more the soul group than the individual soul. Whereas you find yourselves on a journey of re-establishing a sense of being perhaps less individual than you've conceived. That's been valuable. But there's a reaching towards a sense of, yes, I have a soul, but my soul is part of this wonderful community of souls. And we are finding each other more and more in this age, and that matters. What I'm saying here is that soul is quite a fluid kind of state. And as I've already indicated, far from the only way of investigating what it is to be. You can find beings who are, from your perspective, pure consciousness. They don't have any kind of form that you would recognize as form. So much so that as you connect with them, you might find that how they appear to you is different on every occasion. That can be so fleeting, so rapid, that it's difficult for you to perceive such beings, and yet they exist. For them, just as an example, as I said with the angelic beings, soul is not really a necessary or appropriate or a meaningful term. They are recognizing themselves as light and as consciousness, and as light and consciousness, creating the closest they come to form as you would understand it, so momentarily that it is more fluid than anything you currently are able to recognize. There's not a continuity there that you require if you are to experience other beings. Because of the type of time that you're existing in, you need some sense of something that is consistent from this moment to this moment, and so on. Again, what we're emphasizing is that you live in a vast, multidimensional, multi-layered, very varied, very wonderful universe. So now let's come on to emotions, feelings. Do all beings have emotions? Do all beings have feelings? Here, simple answer, this time, no. For the kind of reasons I've sketched in already. Emotions, feelings are neither necessary nor appropriate for some kinds of being. I spoke earlier of suggesting that you imagine a being who identifies with their experience so completely that they are that experience and therefore don't need to respond to it. For you, emotions and feelings are a way of responding to your experience. It's not that total identification with the experience is in some way better than your general way of doing it, responding to the experience that you're having. It's just a different way. And you as humanity are developing the emotional body, the world of feelings. So we're using these words slightly differently. There's an overlap, but feelings will, in general, use to cover the somatics, what you experience through the physical body. The emotions, well, yes, you feel the emotions or the effect of the emotions in your body for sure. But the emotions also can be sensed or thought of as fundamentally non-physical. And part of your purpose as human beings on earth, a shared purpose for all of you, is evolving the emotional body so that you're able to experience a wider and wider range of emotions with greater and greater fluency and fluidity, up to the point where you have such a complete range of response that highly evolved emotional body becomes capable of generating universes itself. It sets up harmonies of such beauty and such range that a universe comes into being. That's a long way down the road, as you can imagine, but it's the direction that humanity is traveling in. Part of the reason that you experience a great deal of turbulence, or a considerable degree of turbulence on the earth plane at the moment, is related to this evolution of the emotional body. Currently, many of you are investing a considerable degree of energy and intention and love, compassion, into allowing yourselves to feel quite a wide range of emotions from bliss to rage, let us say, from elation to depression, right across the spectrum, allowing yourself to feel those emotions, but gently dissolving the unnecessary connections between the emotions and the need to act, so that you can allow yourself to feel very strong emotions and still be in a place of choice when it comes to how you act. In other words, developing that ability to respond rather than to react. And so you can find that a lot of old programming, this is partly what I was talking about at the beginning when I was encouraging an easiness about other people's beliefs. None of your business when someone believes in God or not. Let them believe what they want. That's the message. And it's that fluidity, that recognition that how you have reacted in the past as an individual, as humanity, doesn't need to be carried forward. You can grant each other beingness, you can grant each other space. In that way, that light within, it begins to show, it begins to shine more and more, because people are not needing to defend themselves against attack. They're feeling their beingness is being granted by you, by others. And so that light of source, the light of the divine self, emerges more and more. And so you might consider that there's a kind of process that we could describe here relating back to the question of soul. That as you embody your divine self, so we could think of your divine self as that direct link to source. As you embody that more and more, the point comes when the role of the soul is, in a sense, moved beyond. That the soul is no longer at a distance from you. That you embody the soul so wholly that then the soul's purpose and function is fulfilled and the divine self is present as you. So it's something like that. That's just a little sketch. It's more subtle, more complex, but something like that. As we draw to a close then for this particular talk, be again in the inner spaces of your being. Beauty is a very useful concept, a kind of touchstone, something that you can come back to again and again. Every time you find beauty within yourself, it doesn't really matter whether at the mental level you think of that beauty as being you or something that you just happen to find within you, something you're able to experience. Don't worry about that. But when you discover that sense of beauty within, or indeed when you sense beauty in the world around you, you're really opening a doorway to the source of your own being, God, the wonder of everything. Again, whatever concept works for you, doesn't matter. But that sense of connection with the source of your being opens up the light within. And as you open up the light within more and more, your understanding of what you are, what the source is, what the nature of the journey is, all of that evolves. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.